This is part 2 of the WWE Hall of Famer Bushwhacker Luke. He's going to tell his story. We're going to pick up from where we left off before. So it's great having you back again, Luke.
It's good to be back here, mate, and to be able to talk to all my fans and tell them I'm a part of my lifeline.
Yeah, I mean, you got.
What's that, mate?
I said you definitely got some good stories.
Yeah, I think, where do we leave off last time, Axel?
We were talking about, we were right there in the beginning of your stint for Stampede Wrestling.
High in the heart, this is 1973. I think it was approximately 73, and we moved over to the Stampede Wrestling. Never heard of it. Never heard of the name Stampede Wrestling. Never heard of Stu Hart or any of that. This was all a new thing to us. And the promoter in Montreal said, "We got you booked out with Stampede Wrestling, and you can come back to the Grand Prix later."
Mm-hmm.
And so we arrived Thursday night. Friday was the show in Calgary, in the pavilion, in the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds had 2 arenas. The big one was the corral, and at that time it held 8,000 or 10,000, which now is a saddle dome. It holds 20,000, and the small one was 3,000 plus. That was the pavilion, where they sold cattle and horses and all that. And on Friday night it was the taping, television taping, which we showed every Saturday morning. So when we went out, we arrived in the dressing room. The Mongolian Stomper was the booker, and Archie Goldie from Tennessee.
Right.
God bless his soul, he's dead now. Anyhow, he gave us the finish. We went out and worked with the champions and got double DQ'd. It was a DQ on us. We started hitting them with either our flagpole or whatever, some foreign object.
Right.
Next minute, these kids were thrown in the ring, and a voice was saying to us, "Beat them up, champs, beat them up." And there was 2 kids thrown in first, and then two more kids thrown in. 2 were bleeding, and plus the 2 guys who were wrestling, the champions, they were both bleeding too. So we put the boot to the 6 of them. And when we left them in the ring, headed back to the dressing room, we got to the hallway where you go into the dressing rooms, in the Coliseum, a little pavilion where the dressing rooms on either side of the hallway. And standing in the hallway was this big gentleman weighing about 270, and it was Stu Hart. First thing he said to us, we didn't know who he was. He says, "What the hell are you doing out there? They're my bloody kids." And we were we said we were told to put the boot to them, and of course we thought it was in the script, and this guy was helping us to get some heat. The guy throwing him in was Abdullah the Butcher. He was the main heel in the territory. Right. So of course he had hit the 2 of the kids. They were bleeding. Now the oldest was about 13, 14. I think there was Brett. Owen was just a baby. There was there was Brett and a few other ones. The oldest ones was Dean and Bruce and Smith, of course. They were in about 19 then. Anyhow, we put the boot to them, and of course we got the word from Stu afterwards. "What the fuck are you doing?" Anyhow, long story short, the next night we worked Edmonton. Edmonton was on a tape delay. The television was showing on Saturday morning, so the people saw what was done on Friday night on the tape in Calgary. But the bicycle to Edmonton, and it wasn't seen to the following week. But on Sunday, 3 times a year, Stu did a double shot. On Sunday, we came back at the corral, the other building, which is about 100 yards away in the fairgrounds, the big one. And of course, he always had fly-ins for that. That night, when we came out to the ring, we had people throwing stuff at us already. We had heat, but not drawing heat. You understand what I'm saying? The people
Right.
were hot with us because the kids were well known on television through the dad. The dad had television there from the 50s. But, you know, and that was the start. That day we won the tag team titles, and hence our run in Stampede Wrestling began. And halfway through it, about 6 months later, the Mongolian stomper Archie Goldie left, and more or less we would go up to Stu home every Sunday and map out the programs for the week. You know, when we first come in there, we were the smallest heels in the territory. There was Abdullah, 350 then. There was Big John, 6'7", 325. Archie was 260, 270. Archie Goldie, they were all big heels except a few undercards. So we were the smallest at the time. We had a run there for about a year and a half and did great business. They brought in different teams. You know, the Funks. They brought in other teams to work against us, but we worked with the local guys they had in the territory too. We did angles with them, and on bigger shows we had different talent from outside to come in. And of course, Harley was the world champion then. He used to come in, and we had some hell of a rides. This territory was a back-breaking territory. It was so many miles a week. Thursday night, you would do Saskatchewan, Regina and Saskatchewan, and that was 490 miles from Calgary. So we, after the show, that was a different time zone, an earlier time zone. After the show, we'd hop in the car and drive 490 miles back to Calgary, get in at daybreak, sleep during the day, and go straight to the arena to work television that night. And sometimes, if it was bad snowstorms in the winter, you wouldn't get in until 9 o'clock in the morning. So you'd leave at 10:30 at night and get in at 9 in the morning. And that was a miserable trip, mate. A miserable trip. It was you did a lot of miles. You know, Sunday was always a spot show or an Indian reservation. Monday was maybe 2.5 hours away. Tuesday was an hour away. And then Wednesday, you used to hop in the car and head off to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. That was about a 4-hour drive. Then after that, it was an hour drive to Regina, which was an hour and a half. And then you do the Thursday night show and head back to Calgary. We put some miles in that place, mate.
Well, sounds like it.
Yeah. But we enjoyed it. The Hart kids, Bruce, Smith, who's dead now, who never worked a day in his life, just lived off his wits. Bruce and his other brother, and Dean, of course, is dead now. He died of liver disease way back in the 80s, and that they were heavy pranksters. And if the ribs were played on some of the wrestlers today, they couldn't take it. You know, they'd be running to Vince or running somewhere and screaming. If they didn't like someone to come in and, try them out to get rid of them, they'd play a rib on them and the people would just leave overnight. You know what I mean? They played heavy ribs, like handcuffing kids, wrestlers to a fence. Well, not them handcuffing, but having bogus policemen to pull them over and shoot them for drugs. And then in the dressing room, the Hearts would put some drugs in their pocket, some so-called drugs in their pocket. They get searched. Right. The police, they're friends with the policemen. They had the light on the top of the car. They handcuffed them out to a fence post way out in the country in the snow and just leave them there. That sort of ribs they were, heavy ribs. That's a mild one if I start telling you some. But we enjoyed it there and had a lot of fun. It was a good crew back then. We got the call while we were there that New Zealand, the promoter in New Zealand, now was Steve Rickard, he had a chance to get television. He was opening up the first tapings for television in New Zealand. This was a 75, I think, 76. And we came back to New Zealand to do the first television tapings called On the Mat. And then hence we headed back home and was on coming home, and we had a lot of publicity from working top and Screw Hearts territory and the other territory before that. We worked a lot of cards in the second or third towns. They were running. Grand Prix was running 3 towns. You know, the first territory was in, because it had the giant there. So we worked a lot of main events and that. So when we came back, we had a lot of overseas publicity. And of course, the promoter put us, he was a baby face, so kept us as heels instead of bringing us back as the hometown boys. And that, so, you know, for a start, we didn't like the situation at all. You know what I mean? You know, business wise, you know,
Right.
we've only been in the business now, we've been in the business 15 years. Well, I had been in business, Butch was been in the business about 12 years, and we thought, you know, coming home with a lot of publicity from overseas, paper clippings, and you know, stuff on the not VHS, the other roll, Betamax. You know, have a bit of promotion and be baby faces. Anyhow, we did the first season of wrestling on the mat in New Zealand, and then the actual the booker was Mark Lewin, a well-known wrestler who worked in the Madison Square Garden with King Curtis Ikea in the 70s, and that when he was a teenage in late 60s and early 70s. And then they left New Zealand, and when they left New Zealand, they hot-shotted it. So as soon as they left, the business went right down to the ground. You know, that's what they did in a lot of territories. Anyhow, the territory more or less closed up for a while, or slowed right down, and that. So I started going back to Australia and doing Japan.
Right.
1979, Butcher Me had Itchy Feet. We were back there for about 2 years. We had Itchy Feet and that, and we headed back overseas. That was 79. First stop, we came into the New Zealand promoter wanted to leave New Zealand alone for a while and let it replenish, you know, stop wrestling and give the people a break. So when he opened up again, they'd be fresh and hungry. So he bought the promotion in Hawaii, and that, which was running. They were running 5 or 6 towns, 5 islands a week. You know, they do Waikiki, Honolulu once a week, and all the other islands. It was hey, it was an easy job there. You'd hop on a plane at 5 or 6 at night, get to the town. You know, 7 o'clock show, 7 o'clock show. 8:30, you were heading back to the airport. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, you'd be back in Waikiki or Honolulu. Back in Honolulu. So every night we would go to the gym at 7 or 8 in the morning, have breakfast, come back, go to the beach from 10 to about 4:30, and that's eating a buffet along one of those hotels on the beach, Waikiki. We're living in a Waikiki circle, right across the road from the pier on Waikiki Beach. All the boys stayed there, and then every time we came back to the hotel room, got changed, showered, headed for the airport, and headed to an island. That was an easy. Promotion. No money. We just kept our head above water, fed ourselves, paid our rent, and maybe scraped a few dollars together.
Right.
So we lasted there. They had a big show about 3 months after we were there, 2.5 months, and they flew in a lot of guys for the big show. Roddy Piper was one of the stars. He was living in Oregon at the time. Well, he's from Saskatchewan, but he was living in Oregon, and to fly out to Hawaii is not far. It's on that coast. And he came in and he saw us work, and he said to us afterwards, he says, "We need a heel tag team in Northwest Territories for Don Owen. And he says, and we says, yeah, we want to get out. We said, yeah, we want to get out of this bloody place. You know, and here they lay on the beach every day, but we wanted to get out, and we knew North America was the place to be. You know what I mean? Well, good old USA. And so he got his book. He took us to the phone. He called up Don. He says, Don will talk to you in a half an hour when I finish. So we went to the phone, talked to Don in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and he gave us a starting date. He said, I got to get rid of these other teams and you come in. So we had 6 weeks to fill in there. So I called up Stu. I said, Stu, we've got 6 weeks. We're doing nothing, and we're in Hawaii now. We'd like to come in for you for 6 weeks. And he says, open arms, you know, because we've done great business for him before, and he brought us in. Dynamite Kid was there for about 6 months. We all went together as a British connection, because New Zealand is under the British flag. You know what I mean? It's under the Queen. We're a Commonwealth country, and hence we started going around the territory against 3 of the Hart kids. The first time we flew, we shot a bit of an angle and started going around the territory. While we were in this run, mate, we worked 2 shows, one in Edmonton and one in Calgary. The third Hart was Stu Hart himself. So I could say I worked with Stu Hart. And received some of those sliders that he was well known for. They come across, take your ear off, and the elbow would clip you on the chin, and he'd go down on the knee when he threw it. He'd put you in the corner and throw those sliders. You used to see stars from that elbow. So worked there for Stu for 6 weeks, and then headed into Oregon and started our run. The second week we were there, I think, or the third week, we won the belt, and that was no stopping us. Then we formed an army. We formed an army with Playboy Buddy Rose. He changed his gear and put army gear on and carried the New Zealand flag. Buddy was a very smart man for the business. He knew that was his hometown. And he'd been there for years, and he knew this would be refreshing. He'd join us, a foreigner, and claim USA was the shits and carry our flag. So he joined us in our army, and that was the start of an 18-month run. We worked with Roddy Piper and Rick Martel. We worked for about a month or 6 weeks with other people, and then Rick Martel came and joined Roddy Piper, and that was the start of I think we did 14 months with them. We'd go into 6 mans. They'd bring in Andre the Giant, or they'd bring in Jesse Ventura, or they'd bring someone else from the West Coast to be their partners, and we'd bring Buddy Rose into the 6-man, and then we'd go into singles. Buddy would be working with somebody else, and we'd be working with Roddy or Ricky, and that went well till we're ready to leave, and then Buddy did a double cross on us, and he brought Ed Wiskowski and Colonel de Blaise, and they'd been a tag team before, and ran with them as Butcher Me as baby faces till we finished there. That was a great territory, mate. Northwest Championship Wrestling. It was from the top of California up to Vancouver. We did one night we were working a cage in Vancouver. We built up for this big show, and we're in a cage in the gardens in Vancouver. This was the big arena in the pavilion in Vancouver, cage match, and it was against Roddy and Ricky. That night we were in the ring, and Roddy and Ricky came out. And Roddy thought, well, tonight I'll climb up the side of the ring and jump from the top of the ring into the middle. He gets up to the top, and then he goes to jump. His kilt gets hooked on the top of the ring. He comes down head first. Butcher Me couldn't stop laughing. boy, he got up so bloody mad. His coat, I think his coat was still stuck up there.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Roddy, it was a lot of fun on the road, mate. A lot of fun. We used to travel together in Buddy Rose's van. It was all covered in the back, so the fans never knew that they were with us. And boy, on the way to shows, there was always bets going on. There was ribs going on, and the van would be stopped. They'd mark off 40 yards, and there'd be a race between Buddy. You know, Buddy was only 245, 250 there. 245, and he'd be racing against one of them. Oh, there'd be different things happening all the time. Then there'd be an amateur shoot on the side of the road, a fun shoot, and they stopped the van through an argument. It was wild. Those are the days.
Good times, man.
Yeah. Hey, a funny part is when we came in, I didn't actually see this, but Killer Brooks and Roddy Piper had the belts, and that this was when we were still in Hawaii. This was the story told to me, and that they had to drop the belts to baby faces because they were switching them to us when we came in, which was Ron Starr and the guy that dressed as a woman in the 80s with WWF. He got so big. Adrian
Adonis.
Yeah, they were the tag team. Adrian was about 260, 250 then. Anyhow, they dropped the belt. What happened was during the day, they took this might have to be X-rated, Axel. They took a crap on the belts inside their apartment, and they put them out in the sun to dry. So when the other two guys won the belts, they held them up to people and kissed them. That was a rib. That was one of Piper and Killer Brooks' rib on them. They were always
That's great.
You know, that was our first time with Piper from 78, I think, something around that. And that, but he was a great man. Anyhow, people who worked for Don Owens in Northwest Championship Wrestling, when he finished with them, he got them. If you were the top guys, he would get you booked down in NWA office in the Carolinas. He was friends. Don was friends with the old man Crockett, and when he died, he carried his friendship on with the sons. And that Crockett, David Crockett was the wild one. What was the other Crockett's name?
See, David Crockett, and then Bill.
There's the daughter, and there was the other one. The other one was the one that was the head of the company, the CEO of the company.
Bill Crockett?
No. Anyhow, I can't think of his name. Jim Crockett. Yes. I always remember Black Bart singing, "I'll dig 100 ditches for those Crockett sons of bitches." Ever heard of Black Bart, the Texan? Yeah. He worked on the top and they screwed him around and that, and he always come up with that song, "I'll dig 100 ditches for those Crockett son of bitches." Anyhow, we started working for the Crockett's, and we come in now. We didn't know nothing about the politics and the business. We'd worked across Canada, which a shake of a hand, and it was good. And we worked up for Don Owens with Roddy and Ricky, so guys, they're all guys that work together. There's no egos. You understand? No egos. All of a sudden, we're in this territory where they're running 2 towns a night, and there's groups clicked together. You know what I mean? And a lot of egos. Names. Jimmy Snooker had just left Don Owens when we came in there, so he'd been there for a year and a half, and him and Ray Stevens were the tag team. Oldie was there, but Oldie was in the Oldie was working and that there, but the booker was Scott, which was Scott that went to work with did the first WrestleManias for Vince.
Okay.
Yeah, anyhow, I can't. I'm having a brain fart here, mate. Anyhow, he
Oh,
came in, a good guy. Well, I thought he was a good guy. Anyhow, there was Greg Valentine there, Wahoo, Mick Daniels. Hey, the names, Johnny Weaver, the names went on and on. You know, Rocky Johnson, uh, S.D. Jones, the names it all went up for Vince. You know what I mean? Anyhow, we were there, in the first week, we were on stage. We were about the fourth or fifth match on the big show, and there was eight matches. I say we were about the fifth. So we got changed, and that we're on the stage to watch the last two matches, and one of the main events, or one of the semi-main events, was there behind us, and they were watching on the stage. We're behind the curtains in a big arena. The ring was down the middle, so no one. There was seating all around, and there was seating around the sides too. High tiered seating up the sides and at the back. And we were watching, and we were with this other guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but one of the main eventers there, and he's watching the match, and he's knocking the match to hell, knocking the match. Soon as the guy comes in from the match, we go back to the dressing room, and he's patting the guy on the shoulder and putting the match over. Then we saw how all the backstabbing. You know what I mean? We
right.
realized then the politics in this office, and it was too really politics. The Buzz Sawyer and Matt Bourne were the young tag there. They had the Mid-Atlantic belts, while Ray Stevens and Snooker had the world belts. The Mid-Atlantic belts were the second tag team there. And they were running 2 times a night. So they had a big crew, 60 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Put us with Buzz and Matt, and we won the belts after maybe the third week there. We won the belts off them, and we had the run with the belts, and that. Meanwhile, we're there maybe 6 months, and we were doing 3,500 miles a week. We were working North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and part of Georgia. It was a heck, and you drive through to TBS once a week, which was about 2.5 hours or 2 hours, and you do the tapings there, on the night, Wednesday or one of the nights or Saturday morning. You do 3 tapings, the 3 1-hour tapings, and then you'd head back to the Carolinas. There we actually got up in the morning, had a quick breakfast, hit the road. Went to the gym. We'd be back from the gym by midday. 1 o'clock, we'd be hitting the 1 or 2 o'clock. We'd be hitting the road, and not getting back to 4 in the morning. Getting up at 9 again in the morning, hitting the gym. That was a hectic territory. Very hectic. Well, in 81, 2. The actual the gasoline went up to $1 for the first time. And the Iron Sheik was one of the main heels there, and they put 3 belts on him. And boy, they had him red hot. He was scared going to the ring. Kazro was scared. Now you listen to all his ribs on YouTube and all that. But he was another man then, mate. Because the people were hot. And down south there's a lot of rednecks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Raleigh, we did the television taping there once every 2 weeks, or maybe once a week. And that, next to Raleigh, is one of the major camps, camps for the army in the country, for Marines in the army, and all those kids used to come to the show, and you got out of hand. Used to get out of hand there. They used to jump over the rail. They'd all be boozed up and young army brats. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was wild. Anyhow, what happened to us, mate? we got a call from a friend who was in New Zealand when we went back to the New Zealand tapings, and he was in Puerto Rico, Frenchie Martin, who later who was Dina Bravo's manager later on in WWE. He called us to Puerto Rico and he said, we need a hot tag team down here. And he says, you only work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we asked him about the money. He told us how much we could make, and it was as much as we were making doing it 7 days a week for Crockett.
Right.
So we gave Crockett 6 weeks notice. Now, at that time, we didn't know that you don't give Jim Crockett notice. He gives you the notice and says, you know, I'll finish you up now and I'll bring you back in a couple of years' time. And then us giving him the notice, that was something nobody did. Especially when they were used, we had the belts at the time. And but we gave him notice, and that I didn't know he was hot. He didn't show us he was hot, but we got told by everybody else. As later on, I'll tell you the situation. Anyhow, we gave our notice. We dropped the belts to Rocky, and I'm just thinking the Canadian. The guy had a bald head and used to hit the ring post with his head. The missing link, Dewey Robinson. We dropped Dewey Robinson was a big baby face in Carolinas. He had big curly hair, steroided up, and of course he was from Canada too, from Ontario, and of course Rocky was from Ontario too. And he was up from Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is very similar anyhow. We dropped the bills to them and headed to Puerto Rico. So that was all of a sudden we're going to work on a Friday night, leaving home and going for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour trip to the town of Puerto Rico, coming home, being back on the beach. We're living on the beach of Puerto Rico in Isla Verde, the Green Island. That was on one side of the airport, the main airport, and on the island. And Saturday, we'd go and do a house show, which would be taped for television. And then Sunday, we would, the television would play Saturday morning at midday. And then Saturday night, we'd do the house show. The house shows were drawing around about 8,000 every Saturday night there. Friday night show was drawing about 1,500. And then Sunday, we'd do a double shot. We'd do an afternoon show at 2:33 at Aquadia, and then we'd do Ponce. We'd do Ponce Sunday night at 7 o'clock. So, you know, they'd have some guys already there at Ponce, and we'd head out of Aquadia and then get to the main event in Ponce. So, you know, those two shows would do a couple of thousand between them. So that was all we did in Puerto Rico. Now and again, we do a taping in a studio on a Thursday night, but that was rare. The rest was done in the house on Saturday night. And all of us from doing 3,500 miles a week to doing 100, 200, 300, 300 miles to 350 miles a week. It was another world, mate. Right. Laying in the sun on the beach every day. It was a blood and guts territory, of course. You know, Carlos was the promoter and the main baby face there. He was like a Hulk Hogan down there at the time. You know, they had opened up WWC it was Capital Sports WWC World Wrestling Council in '75, and this was 81, 81, I'd say. So that was our first experience there in Puerto Rico. So you know how they got us over? The first night we came in the Saturday night show, Carlos was signing autographs at the front desk. Everybody had bought a ticket, got a free autograph from him. So there was a line for autographs from him. He instead of coming to the back of the arena, he told us to come into the front of the arena, and of course we had a flagpole, and it was steam pipe. You know what steam pipe is?
Yeah.
Not light. It's not light, and we had a what's the name? A socket in the middle where you can unscrew half and half. The top half had the flag on it. The bottom half was the part you held.
Mm-hmm.
We came and he said, come in through the lobby, unscrew your part, and just come, not through the people, and whack me with that thing. And whacked me with that pole. We knocked over the table, all the fans were in the lobby, of course. And this was about 45 minutes before the show. And the lobby was full because there was a free signed photo with him. And he juiced himself so bad, the blood was all over the place. An ambulance carried him to the hospital. Took him to the hospital. He actually got sewed up. Went to the hospital, got sewed up, and we were working the last match. We were in the last match against him and Invader One. Invader One, the well-known Invader from the Brody incident, and they announced that everybody in the arena when the show started knew that Carlos was in hospital. It went around it like bang, even the late people that come. So Vader came out and talked at the start of the match, and he says, "But I'm going to take these two guys on. They can't come in here and do that." And we worked with them for about 8 minutes, tagging in and out and getting on top and letting him shine. And then we got some serious heat on him, and he started bleeding. And lo and behold, fucking ambulance stroke. An ambulance came in from the back of arena. Carlos came out with his head all wrapped up with an axe pole in his hand, come in the ring and bang, bang, bang. That was our first night there in San Juan. And then we fought our way back to the dressing room. That was wild. And then from then on, the business just boomed. We had a hell of a run there. And in that run was cut off because Butch had been away from home again since he'd been away from home in Canada for three or 4 years, and his wife had come over for a year with the kids. He had 2 kids, and they were 1 and 3 at the time when we were in Canada. That's when we were in Montreal. And then he came back in 79 with me and started 79. And now it was 82 going on to 82. And that he hadn't been home and his wife was giving him drama and that. So he said to me, he's going to leave me. He said, I'm going to pack up and head for home. And that's when he packed up and he left for home. And left me as only the lonely. So I had to get. Meanwhile, going around the States, there was 2 Australians, the Royal Kangaroos. Not the first Kangaroos, but the Royal Kangaroos. Big names in the South. Jonathan Boyd and Lord Norman Charles. It's Jonathan Boyd and Norman Charles. Jonathan Boyd the first or the fifth, Norman Charles, the royalty. They were called the Royal Kangaroos, and they'd broken up. And Jonathan was working as a single back home up in Oregon. So I'm looking for someone who could talk, and I heard he was a great talker, because I wasn't the talker. Butch was the good talker, and I needed a talk, and Jonathan wasn't tall, was 5'9", 5'8", but thick. He, was 230, 225, 230 thick.
Right.
And he joined me. He shaved his head, came down. He had long hair as a Royal Kangaroo. He had long hair, and he wore the hats, the kangaroo hats. And that he shaved his head, came down, and hence he became the sheep herder, the third sheep herder. Well, Butch
Right.
went home, and hence, and now my new partner is, and I actually had, when this situation happened, I finished there because I knew that we couldn't come back with a partner down there because, they'd seen Butch and me as a partner. So we moved and started up together in Florida for Florida
Mhm.
Championship Wrestling with the Briscoes and blah blah blah, and then we went to Continental Wrestling, the Fullers.
Mhm.
Rod Fuller and Robert Fuller. You heard of those colonels?
Yeah.
Colonel Robert Fuller in
Yeah.
WCW. They had
Mhm.
their own territory. They'd run 5 years out of Pensacola. That run all Alabama and Florida. The Panhandle of Florida and Alabama and do the tapings in Dothan, Alabama, the peanut capital of the world. And then they would close that down, and then it would go up to Knoxville and run Knoxville for 5 years. Fuller's done that. They were the Welsh family. Fuller's was the working name. The Welshes were the family. Welshes were the big family from 1940s in the wrestling business in the south of USA. They owned right across from Florida the Grahams. Eddie
Mhm.
Graham and his son. They were related to the Welshes. The whole family owned right across the southern part of US. The relations.
Right.
So we went to, Jonathan and me worked in Florida, and then we went to the Fullers, and then had a hell of a run with the Fullers for a year or so. Working against Brad Armstrong and his father, Bob Armstrong. What a
Mhm.
team they were. And then when we weren't working with them, we worked with Ron and Robert. Robert would run the territory for 6 months, and then Ron would run the territory for 6 months. And they had their partner, their cousin was Jimmy Golden.
Mhm.
Remember Buck Snort in WCW?
Yeah.
The cowboy.
Mhm.
Yeah. He was with names are now, the guy's dead now too. Dickie Slater. They were a tag team in WCW.
Mhm.
Anyhow, we had a great run in that territory, Jonathan and me. Hey, Jonathan was hated in the dressing room, so you can imagine how the fans hated him. He was,
Mhm.
a, God bless him, he was a smaller guy that had a hard on for American wrestlers because he worked for Jim Barnett in Australia, and when Jim Barnett brought all the Americans in, he used the Australian as job boys. They were squashed in 3 to 5 minutes. When I used to go to Australia and work over there, my matches are only 5 minutes. I worked over there, as I mentioned before, in the 60s, a Sweet William. The matches never more than 5 minutes, 3 minutes, but you're making a paycheck, a good paycheck. And Jonathan,
Mhm.
when he came over here, it was time for him to pay these Americans back. So he didn't like to give them too much, you know what I mean? He loved to
Right.
beat up on them. It was his time. So, while the tag match was on, they used to try to hold me in as long as possible as a heel. Stay in, stay in. Because when Jonathan came in, he would let them see daylight.
Mhm.
But it was good for the tags. It got us over hot. It was crazy at the time, but we had a good run. We had a good run there in for the Continental Wrestling for the Fullers for about a year and a half. And of course, the Welshes and the Fullers, they were related to the Jarretts too. As I said, the whole South was related. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
next territory was for Jerry Jarrett. And hence we went in there. And of course, the first week, he did one hell of an angle. Jerry was a great brain too. I think he was around Eddie Graham a lot, and and guys from Amarillo. What's the tag team from Amarillo? Terry Funk. The dad Funk had a hell of a, Funk Senior. He had one hell of a brain. One of the great British mans of the business, same as Eddie Graham. And I think Jerry was around them a lot, and he had a great brain for it too. And of course, when he brought us in, Billy, the Australian guy was the booker.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Dundee.
Mm-hmm. Bill Dundee,
And of course, I knew Billy from the 60s when he used to come over to New Zealand. Billy was only a short man too, 5'6", 5'7", and that, but one hell of a worker. And he was a booker there, and we came in. We did an angle on television the second week there, and hence we got on fire, and they built the Fabulous Ones up before we came in, and we were the first team to do battle around the territory with the Fabulous Ones. And that battle went for 9 months all around Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and below Memphis. What's that? Mississippi. Worktown. That territory was a big territory, mate. A big territory. And we did an angle, where the commissioner, which was Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law, came in at the ring this night because we beat up the opponents with flag. We would never we'd come to the ring first with our flagpole. As soon as the opponents come out to the ring, we wouldn't even let them in. We'd beat them up the flagpole. And this night, the commissioner got up. He says, "I've had enough of you guys. You've no respect for here. You don't let your opponents in the ring." And we dragged him in. He was up on the apron. We dragged him in, laid him out, and then held him and whacked him over the head with the flagpole. He got the color, we got the color on him, and then the studio in Memphis, I think it was Studio 4 or 2, Channel 2 or Channel 4. Ambulance pulled in the side door, took him to the hospital, and they came back online next week and said they are fired. After what happened last week, the sheep herders are fired, and that's when Jerry, I think it was Jerry Lawler, come over. He said, "That's the easy way out." And he says, "Bill Dundee will kick their ass out of territory." So we started with him and Bill Dundee, and we switched to the Fabulous Ones, and hence we went around that territory, and it was sellouts for 9 months. Great business for 9 months. Bill Dundee and Jerry and then but mainly with the Fabulous Ones. That was our run there. And when we had a hell of a run, it was hot shot. Of course, it was hot shooting. A lot of wild matches, mate. A lot of blood and gut matches. And we worked up to them from, the normal matches to the time limit, to a Broadway, and then to the lumberjack match, and then to maybe a cage match, a barbed wire match, whatever it was. And the rules in Kentucky are strange, what was it called now? When you get thrown over the top, you lose the match. Over there, it's the last man in. It's the last, whatever. And the last man, if you strip a man down to his underpants, the other team's the winner. Crazy rules and that, but the fans love those. Eat a can of dog food. If you lose a match, they had a can of dog food on the ringside, and you had to eat a can of dog food. They were educated to all that stuff. And I was there too. I was there when the Andy Kaufman story was Jimmy Hart and Jerry Lawler and the Andy Kaufman story. I was there when they first did that. That was one hell of a thing they did on television. Letterman came down and did the show, and they put that show on television.
Yeah,
That was one hell of an angle.
Were you
Not
there?
many people remember.
Right. Oh shit!
What was going to say, mate?
I said, were you were there when Randy showed up, weren't you?
Yeah, Randy. No, I wasn't. Randy had been in there before, and then, but they were running opposition now at Lexington, Kentucky. They had a territory around Lexington, Kentucky, and we would only go to Lexington once a month. That was their territory.
Right.
When we left, that's when the accident. When I heard the thing happened, and Bill Dundee. Randy hit Bill Dundee. Bill Dundee was putting his bag in the trunk. There's many stories about that where he got hit over the head, and then there was a.
You still there? Why the hell did it stop recording? Hello? Still there, Luke? Well, folks, it looks like we lost him. Luke, are you still there? Well,